Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. Caleb stared at his computer screen, his fingers hovering motionless over the keyboard. The quarterly report he'd been working on for days blurred before his eyes, the numbers and charts melting into an indecipherable mess. He rubbed his temples, trying to ward off the headache that threatened to bloom. A sharp rap on his cubicle wall made him jump. "Caleb, my office, now!" Mr. Hargrove's gruff voice brooked no argument. Caleb's stomach clenched as he rose from his chair, smoothing down his rumpled white dress shirt. What had he done wrong? The Stevenson account? The presentation from last week? His mind raced as he followed his boss's retreating back. Mr. Hargrove's office was a corner affair, all sleek lines and modern furniture. The man himself settled behind his imposing desk, gesturing for Caleb to take a seat. "Close the door," he ordered. The click of the latch felt like a jail cell slamming shut. Caleb perched on the edge of the chair, his palms sweating. "Is there a problem, sir?" Mr. Hargrove's steely gaze pierced him. "You're aware of the Nakamura deal?" Caleb nodded. Everyone in the office knew about the potential contract with the eccentric Japanese businessman. It could make or break their fiscal year. "Well, we've hit a snag." Mr. Hargrove's fingers drummed on the polished desktop. "Nakamura-san has particular tastes. He prefers to do business with women." "I see," Caleb said slowly, not seeing at all. "Perhaps Angela from marketing." "No," Mr. Hargrove cut him off. "It needs to be you. You know the financials inside and out." Caleb's brow furrowed. "I don't understand, sir. How can I—" "You'll need to present as a woman." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and suffocating. Caleb blinked, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry." Mr. Hargrove leaned forward, his voice low and intense. "Listen, Caleb. This deal is worth millions. The board is breathing down my neck. If we don't land it, heads will roll, starting with yours." "But, sir, I can't—" "You can, and you will." Mr. Hargrove's tone left no room for argument. "We'll get you everything you need. Clothes, makeup, the works. You'll present yourself as Milani, our new financial analyst." Caleb's mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. It had to be some kind of sick joke. But the grim determination on his boss's face told him otherwise. "Sir, please," he tried one last time. "There has to be another way." Mr. Hargrove's expression softened slightly. "I know it's a lot to ask, Caleb, but you're the only one who can pull this off. Think of it as the ultimate sales pitch. You're selling yourself as much as the deal." Caleb's shoulders slumped in defeat. He knew the job market was brutal, and he couldn't afford to lose this position. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just for the initial meeting and dinner. If all goes well, we can find a way to transition the account." Mr. Hargrove stood, signaling the end of the conversation. "Karen from HR will help you with the details. Remember, Caleb, the future of this company is in your hands." The next few days passed in a blur of fittings, makeup tutorials, and voice coaching. Caleb felt like a puppet, pulled this way and that by unseen strings. The women from HR cooed over him, treating the whole affair like some grand makeover. He wanted to scream, to tell them this wasn't a game or a reality show. This was his life, his identity, being stripped away and remolded to fit someone else's expectations. The night before the meeting, Caleb stood in front of the full-length mirror in his apartment, barely recognizing the person staring back at him. The black cocktail dress hugged curves he didn't know he had, padded in all the right places. His normally short brown hair was hidden beneath a carefully styled wig, the long chestnut locks framing a face transformed by contouring and false lashes. Even his nails were perfect, glossy red ovals that clicked softly against the glass when he reached out to touch his reflection. "Hello, Milani," he whispered, his voice higher and softer than usual. The woman in the mirror smiled back, but her eyes were hollow. Caleb turned away, unable to bear the sight any longer. He carefully removed the outfit and wig, storing them for tomorrow. As he scrubbed the makeup from his face, He tried to wash away the doubt and self-loathing that clung to him like a second skin. Sleep eluded him that night. He tossed and turned, his mind racing with all the ways this charade could go wrong. What if Nakamura saw through the disguise? What if he slipped up and used the wrong pronoun? What if he actually enjoyed it? That last thought terrified him more than any other. Morning came too soon. Harsh sunlight streaming through the blinds he'd forgotten to close. Caleb went through his usual routine on autopilot: shower, shave, brush teeth. But instead of reaching for his usual suit and tie, he found himself facing the garment bag that held his alter ego. With trembling hands, he began the transformation. Each layer felt like a betrayal of everything he thought he knew about himself. The shapewear smoothed his masculine lines, the dress clung to newly created curves, the wig settled onto his head like a crown of lies. The makeup was the final touch, a mask to hide behind. As he applied foundation, concealer, and powder, Caleb tried to bury his true self beneath layers of artifice. By the time he carefully lined his lips and filled them in with a subtle rose color, Milani was staring back at him from the mirror. A car horn blared outside, making him jump. The company car was here to take her to the meeting. Caleb took a deep breath, steadying himself on the bathroom counter. "You can do this," he murmured, meeting his own gaze in the mirror. "It's just another performance." The ride to the restaurant was a blur of last-minute preparations. Milani now, reviewed the financials one last time, rehearsing key points in her head. She adjusted her wig, checked her makeup, and practiced walking in heels by pacing the length of the limousine. The car pulled up to the curb, and the driver opened the door. Milani stepped out, wobbling slightly on her stilettos. She straightened her spine, plastered on a confident smile, and strode into the restaurant as if she owned the place. The maitre d' led her to a private dining room, where Mr. Hargrove and Nakamura-san were already seated. Both men stood as she entered, and Milani felt a flutter of panic in her chest. This was it, the moment of truth. "Ah, Milani-san," Nakamura said, his accent thick but his English impeccable. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you." Milani extended her hand, praying it wasn't sweating. "The pleasure is all mine, Nakamura-san. I've heard so much about you." As they settled into their seats, Milani caught Mr. Hargrove's approving nod. She'd passed the first test. Now came the hard part, maintaining the illusion through an entire meal and business discussion. The conversation flowed more easily than Milani had expected. She found herself slipping into the role, her gestures becoming more fluid, her laugh more melodious. It was like watching someone else pilot her body, someone more graceful and self-assured than Caleb had ever been. Nakamura seemed charmed, leaning in to catch her every word. When the discussion turned to business, Milani was ready. She laid out the proposal with confidence, her manicured nails tapping rhythmically against the tablet as she swiped through charts and projections. "Your company's growth potential is impressive," Nakamura mused, studying the figures. "But tell me, Milani-san, what sets you apart from your competitors?" Milani didn't hesitate. "Our adaptability, Nakamura-san. We're willing to go to extraordinary lengths to meet our clients' needs." She held his gaze, acutely aware of the double meaning in her words. Nakamura's eyes crinkled at the corners. "I see. And you personally embody this philosophy?" "Absolutely," Milani replied, her heart pounding. "I believe that success in business, as in life, often requires us to step outside our comfort zones, to become more than we thought possible." The rest of the meeting passed in a whirlwind of negotiations and small talk. By the time dessert arrived, Milani could sense victory within reach. Nakamura's body language had shifted from guarded to open, and he was already discussing future collaborations. As they said their goodbyes, Nakamura clasped Milani's hand in both of his. "It has been a true pleasure, Milani-san. I look forward to a long and fruitful partnership." The moment the restaurant door closed behind them, Mr. Hargrove turned to Milani with a triumphant grin. "You did it! I knew you had it in you, Milani." Milani managed a weak smile. the adrenaline of the performance already fading. "Thank you, sir. If you'll excuse me, I need to use the restroom." She hurried to the ladies' room, locking herself in a stall. Only then did she allow herself to shake, tears threatening to ruin her carefully applied mascara. What had she done? Who was this person she'd become? The drive back to the office was silent, Milani lost in thought as the city lights blurred past the window. She should have felt elated. The deal was all but signed, her job secure. Instead, she felt hollow, as if she'd sold a piece of her soul along with the company's services. At the office, Mr. Hargrove was effusive in his praise. "I've never seen anything like it," he gushed. "You had him eating out of the palm of your hand. The board is going to flip when they hear about this." Milani nodded mechanically, barely hearing the words. All she wanted was to shed the skin, to become Caleb again. But as she gathered her things to leave, Mr. Hargrove's next words stopped her cold. "I think we've stumbled onto something here, Milani. With your talents, we could corner the market on these particular clients." "What do you say? Ready to take your career to the next level?" Milani stared at him, a war raging inside her. Part of her wanted to scream, to tear off the wig and throw it in his face. But another part, a part she was afraid to examine too closely, thrilled at the idea. The power she'd felt in that dining room, the way Nakamura had hung on her every word, it was intoxicating. I need some time to think about it," she managed to say. Mr. Hargrove nodded, his expression understanding but eager. Of course. Take the weekend, but remember, opportunities like this don't come along every day." Milani fled the office, her heels clicking a frantic rhythm on the tile floor. In the elevator, she caught sight of herself in the mirrored walls and froze. Who was this woman staring back at her? Was it Milani, the confident businesswoman who'd just landed a multi-million-dollar deal? Or Caleb, the man desperately trying to hold onto his sense of self? The truth, she realized with a start, was that she didn't know anymore. The weekend stretched before her, an endless expanse of time, to grapple with questions she'd never thought she'd face. Caleb spent most of it in a daze, alternating between long periods of introspection and frantic attempts to distract himself. He tried to lose himself in mindless television, but every commercial featuring a polished businesswoman sent his mind spinning back to that night at the restaurant. He went for a run, hoping to sweat out his confusion, but the rhythmic pounding of his feet on the pavement only provided a backdrop for his swirling thoughts. By Sunday evening, he was no closer to a decision. He stood in front of his closet, staring at the garment bag that held Milani's outfit. With trembling hands, he unzipped it, running his fingers over the soft fabric of the dress. Almost without conscious thought, he found himself slipping it on, relishing the way it hugged his body. He applied makeup with growing confidence, each brushstroke bringing Milani closer to the surface. When he finally donned the wig, carefully arranging the chestnut locks, the transformation was complete. Milani gazed at her reflection, turning this way and that. She looked good, damn good, if she was being honest. But more than that, she felt powerful, confident, like she could take on the world and win. Is this who I really am? The thought bubbled up from some deep, hidden part of her psyche. Have I been playing a role my whole life, only to discover my true self through another performance? The question haunted her as she carefully removed the costume, storing each piece away like a cherished secret. Sleep eluded her that night, her dreams a confusing jumble of boardrooms and dressing rooms, of handshakes and lipstick kisses. Monday morning dawned gray and drizzly, matching Caleb's mood as he made his way to the office. He'd made no decision, hoping that somehow the answer would become clear in the harsh light of day. Mr. Hargrove was waiting for him, practically vibrating with excitement. "Caleb, just the man I wanted to see. Come in, come in." Caleb followed him into the office, his stomach churning. "Sir, about the proposal." "Forget the proposal," Mr. Hargrove interrupted, waving a hand dismissively. I've got something even better. Nakamura was so impressed with Milani that he's recommended us to several of his associates. We've got meetings lined up all week. Caleb felt the blood drain from his face. All week? Mr. Hargrove nodded, oblivious to his discomfort. This could be huge for us, Caleb. For you. I'm talking fast track to upper management, bonuses, the works. All you have to do is say yes. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Caleb gripped the edge of the desk, trying to steady himself. I don't know if I can do this, sir. It's not who I am. Mr. Hargrove's expression softened. Look, I understand this is a lot to ask, but think about it. Haven't you always felt like something was holding you back? Like you were capable of more, if only you could find the right outlet? He leaned in, his voice low and persuasive. This is your chance, Caleb, to be more than you ever thought possible. The words echoed in Caleb's mind, stirring something deep within him. Wasn't that exactly what he'd told Nakamura? That success required stepping outside one's comfort zone? I need to think about it, he managed to say. Mr. Hargrove nodded, disappointment flickering across his face. Of course, but don't take too long. This train is leaving the station, with or without you. Caleb stumbled out of the office, his mind reeling. He made it to his cubicle on autopilot, collapsing into his chair. The familiar surroundings felt alien now, as if he were seeing them through someone else's eyes. He glanced at the framed photo on his desk, a younger version of himself, grinning at the camera on his first day at the company. Had he ever really been that person? That eager young man, ready to climb the corporate ladder? Or had that been just another role he'd played, another mask he'd worn? The day passed in a blur of routine tasks and worried glances from coworkers. Caleb could feel the weight of their curiosity, their whispered speculations about what had transpired in Mr. Hargrove's office. But he couldn't bring himself to care. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Caleb found himself alone in the office. He wandered the empty halls, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Without conscious thought, his feet carried him to the executive bathroom, the one he'd used to transform into Milani that fateful night. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, searching for something, some sign, some indication of who he truly was, beneath the layers of expectation and performance. Who are you? He whispered to his reflection. Caleb? Milani? Both? Neither? The man in the mirror offered no answers, only a confused and frightened stare. With trembling hands, Caleb reached into his briefcase, pulling out the makeup kit he'd stashed there that morning. He wasn't sure why he'd brought it. Some subconscious preparation for this very moment, perhaps. Slowly, methodically, he began to apply the cosmetics, foundation to smooth away imperfections, contouring to reshape his features, eyeshadow, mascara, lipstick, each step bringing him closer to what? Truth? Illusion? He wasn't sure anymore. When he finished, Milani stared back at him from the mirror, but this time there was no wig to hide behind, no dress to complete the illusion. Just Caleb's short hair and rumpled suit paired with Milani's carefully painted face. He studied the incongruous image, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over him. This was the truth, wasn't it? Not Caleb, not Milani, but something in between, something new and undefined. In that moment, standing in the harsh fluorescent light of the executive bathroom, he made his decision. The next morning, Caleb strode into Mr. Hargrove's office with purpose. His boss looked up, surprise flickering across his face at Caleb's appearance. The young man wore a perfectly tailored pantsuit in a deep charcoal, cut to flatter his slim figure. His makeup was subtle but present, enhancing his features without fully transforming them. His short hair was carefully styled, the soft spikes adding a touch of androgyny to his look. Caleb, Mr. Hargrove said uncertainly. Or should I say Milani? Neither, Caleb replied, his voice pitched somewhere between his natural tone and Milani's higher register. Or both, I suppose. I've made my decision, sir. Mr. Hargrove leaned back in his chair, gesturing for Caleb to continue. "I'll take the meetings," Caleb said, "but on my terms. No more full transformation, no more pretending to be someone I'm not. I am who I am. A blend of Caleb and Milani, of masculine and feminine. That's the person who closed the Nakamura deal, and that's the person who will represent this company going forward." Mr. Hargrove was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded slowly. "It's unconventional," he mused. "But then again, so are our clients, and if it works..." He stood, extending his hand. "You've got yourself a deal, Caleb, or whatever name you choose to go by." Thanks for watching. The rest won't be viewable on YouTube, so check out Patreon if you want more. I hope you have a wonderful day, my cutie.